Greetings, YouTubers. Well, tonight we are old school. Check us out. We got us a 2000 Expedition, a 4.6, 2 valves. None of this 3 valve stuff or 5.4 stuff tonight. One of the more interesting engines that Ford made. Basically, the block is all the same, but some of these have plastic intakes. And looky here, we have an aluminum intake, which you don't see very many of these. Now, what we're doing here, we're kind of doing a tune-up tonight. This thing has never had plugs, coils, or injectors put in it. We've had several issues with misfires on number 1 and 2 over here. Then we got one on number 7. And we replaced a couple of used coils in, tried to keep it running a little bit longer, but to a point now it just doesn't want to run on its own. So what we're doing here, and you're probably ready to cringe, get ready to cringe in 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we got AC Delco spark plugs. We got some aftermarket fuel injectors here, supposedly to be metered right up against Bosch fuel injectors that were put into Ford. And also we have these aftermarket coils here, and these are, I don't know who makes these, Precision Auto Labs ignition coils, and at the bottom it says lethal voltage. So what we're going to do, we're just going to stick all this in here. We didn't want to put a lot of money in the vehicle. Got 300,000 miles on, but the motor sounds amazing. It's a quiet little running vehicle. So we're going to do what we can do here tonight. So let me show you what I've done so far. If we would have bought OEM parts, it would have been over $400 probably. Some of those parts are very expensive and they're kind of hard to get. So and see how it goes, and in the comment section I will let you guys know in a week or two how she's running. So one thing I did right off the bat was get this air cleaner and stuff out of the way. And you got a couple things here. You got this power steering bracket that you take off. You got some hoses, move all this stuff out of the way. And same thing over here. You unhook a few things, kind of push things out of the way. I even got the coolant hose here that was kind of connected right there. It's up here, kind of pushed out of the way because you want to have a little room in here. Then once you get all that disconnected, everything, pretty simple bolts, you know, 8mm, some 10mm bolts, and here it's a bracket that kind of goes like this up on her, like that, kind of sits in there on top of that. Then you can start disassembling some things. Now you might still have a few other little hoses and stuff here you might have to pull out of the way, a couple little wires, you know. But other than that, the first thing I like to do is go ahead and get this fuel injector out of the way, this rail. And these are little 10mm bolts, and you can see it kind of bolts like this, because if you unhook this side and unhook this side, it'll allow you to get this out of the way far enough where you can kind of pull these injectors out. And we've already got one pulled out, which is right here, and we got one of the old coils that we pulled out, and literally I likely never got this thing out. It was glued on the spark plug. And also here's one of the older coils, coils injectors. So that's what we're doing. And of course, when you're doing all that, one thing you do want to make sure is go ahead and disconnect the battery, because you don't want to accidentally turn the key on and pump a bunch of fuel up in here. So, you know, you're going to get some fuel in here. So if you're doing this in a garage, make sure you don't have any open flames. There's a little bit of fuel there, but it's not too bad. Same thing over here. Now I've got this out of the way far enough, and what I'm doing is taking out the coils. Pretty easy to do. Little 7mm bolts here. We'll get all these out, then we can get into these injectors. I start from the front, work my way back. I did go ahead and try to get the back one out to see how hard it would be to get out. It's kind of hard to get out, so start from the front, disconnect these, and then pull them out, work your way back. Then when you put them in, start from the back and work your way forward. And the same thing over here. We're going to do the same thing over here, so let's go ahead and get these coils out and these injectors. Alright, so we've got everything out on this side, and this coil will not come out. I have been pulling on it for a couple of minutes. Oh, finally. Perfect timing with the camera. Alright, so that one came out. So, as you can see, all the way back through here. And be careful with your wires when you're unhooking these from the injectors. Those injector wires are easy to break. So, there is everything, and I think you can see what it looks like back in there. So you get the fuel rail out, it's pretty easy to get in here and get all this stuff out. So now I'm going to run it back. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side over here, get everything kind of out, then clean up and run a vacuum cleaner all over everything, because some of the stuff falling down the plug holes there. So I need to take those spark plugs out next. So This side's pretty much out, which is good. All right, I'll let you watch me try to get this injector out here. I've got the coil loose, and I usually just get something underneath and pry up on these, and they come out. Now this one's red. I painted it red because we were swapping them around trying to figure out which is bad. So there's that. And let's get this coil out of here. Alright, well obviously that one came out real easy. So now we're going to do the rest, and we'll have to kind of hold this rail up a little bit here. Kind of keep it out of the way so we can get the rest of these. Alright, you can see we've got all these out. I got two more in the back here. Got this this injector to get out. I've had these out before, so they should come out pretty easy. So that is out. And this coil in the back, I've got the wire and hooked in bolt out. There's that. Like I said, you're going to have to fight with this thing here. I may have the bungee cord up, put a bungee cord on it and pull it up out of the way. And there's this one here, so what a mess, huh? There's all the old coils, and there's some of the injectors. So we'll fix this up out of the way, kind of hold it up out of the way. I'm going to take a rag and get in there and clean up some of this oil. I'm going to go ahead and pull the plugs out next and go from there. So not too bad so far. Got all the plugs out except the two front ones here. I'm using a magnet to fish those out. We'll look at those in a second. And I got one on this side over here we're going to take out, which is right here. And they were a little tough to get out, but they came out. I was worried about stripping the threads, and a couple of these, let's see, which one did I pull out that had this stuff built up all over it pretty bad? Let me find it here. I don't know how well you can see this one, but she's been running a little hot there. Look at the stuff built up on that. Yeah, so I'm glad we're getting them changed out. So should make it run a lot better. Alright, before we move along too far, I want to give you guys a little heads up. Sometimes pieces of dirt will fall down in here, and these sockets, I'm using a 16 mil on this one. It fits pretty snugly there. Sometimes dirt will fall around the edge of this, and when you put this down here, it'll just spin. You can't get it on there. So I usually just take a little hammer, just barely tap on it to break the dirt down a little bit, or something might fall in there, a piece of plastic or something, and try to get in there far enough to get this out like this, because it's really hard to get anything down in there to pull anything out. So I basically took a little mirror like this and looked down the hole to verify what was in there. So just be aware of that. And now we'll go ahead and start putting these new ones in. These gap between 54 and 56 thousandths, so these should go in fairly easy. Alright, we got that side done, and this side here will be done once we get this one in. Although MSC's there on all the plugs. Put that side in. Everything went in fairly easy, so gapped them about 55. I think it was 54 to 56 thousandths, so yeah. So we're going pretty good here. Alright, we're tightening down the last plug, and you don't have to torque on these guys. Just snug them down, okay? You don't need to put a lot of pressure in there. Alright, we got them all on, so this side is done, the passenger side is done. Really all I have to do is go ahead and finish up this side over here, and go ahead and drop these fuel rails down on these injectors and all that, and bolt them up. So wasn't too bad over this. On this side wasn't that bad. Well, on this side, the driver's side, I had to do a little magic right there. I had to kind of drill that little bolt out. That's been broken off ever since I've had the vehicle, so I decided to go ahead and break it out. Try to get a screw in there. That's the only one. All these are okay. A lot of the plastic plenums don't have that problem. They the whole thing just turns inside the plastic. So go ahead and get this finished up here. All right, we got them all on. That side's done, and this side is done. And really, the only thing I have to do now is go ahead and start putting stuff together here. One quick tip here is, if you can't get your fuel rail on, look up under there and make sure one of these O-rings aren't stuck up in there, because sometimes they'll stick up in a fuel rail, and you try to put this on there and it won't go on, and you have all kind of problems. But I had one stuck on there, and I couldn't figure out why that would not go on there. It was because I had one of those on there. So double check your O-rings, make sure they're not stuck up in there. Alright, so when we come back here, hopefully this thing will be running. I'm not going to show you how to put it back together, but it's pretty simple. And I'll see you back here shortly when it's running. Well, it's the next day, a beautiful day, sunshine outside, and last night was a failed attempt to get this thing started, to get it all back together. Wouldn't start. You could try to hear it kind of running a little bit, but all I could smell was raw fuel. Turns out I had to pull 4 of these ejectors out on this side. This is the new ones. These are just junk. I figured that. I've had this problem before, especially one of my Nissans. I've got a video on that. You gotta watch these aftermarket fuel injectors. You gotta really buy OEM or something with a brand name. So I pulled all 4 of these new ones out, put the old ones back in, started right up. This side, I've got to take these new ones back out and just throw them away and put the original ones back in. So my advice is, if you're going to do this, if you have ejectors that are already in it and they're not missing or anything, just keep those, clean them up, and put them back in. But if you're going to buy you know, aftermarket ones, boy, beware. A lot of people have trouble with these, and these things do feel kind of light. But it was kind of interesting to see if it would work. So now I'll go ahead and put the old ones back in, clean them up over there. Stick them back on this side. A little longer do it on this side because you got a little more to do. But this side's real easy to do. So, yeah, that was a fail on my part. So, live and learn. And this valuable information can be passed on along to you also. It was worth a try anyway. Alright, finally it's running. After putting my old fuel injectors back in and taking these out, it started right up on its own knees. We're just dumping too much fuel into the engine, so be aware of those. And I had one bad coil, tested it, hooked it up, no sparks. I put one of my old ones back in it. But I have 7 of these and one of my used ones. This is why I keep all my old parts. But other than that, the engine's running perfect. It's smooth, just like it should. It's actually, I've never heard it run this good. Just changing out new plugs in this thing made a big difference. Your plugs, make sure you get OEM because it does make a difference. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to take this on a little road trip, make sure everything's okay. So, you know, just a quick tip, if you're going to do a tune-up, make sure you try to buy, you know, OEM parts. Stay away from these junk injectors. Here's a picture of them. They're floating around all over the internet, on eBay, real cheap. Yeah, beware. Read the reviews. There's some bad reviews in there. So, other than that, she's running beautifully. So, alright, let's take her out. Alright, we're back from about a 40-mile drive, and we don't have any more misfire codes. We took care of that. Actually, a little bit of water got down in and around that when I took that hose off on that heater core. So you gotta watch that. I took an air hose and blew it out, but the only code we got here is a P0401, and that's that piece on top of the engine. A lot of these 4.6s have a problem with that. You gotta take it apart and clean it or replace it, but yeah, she's running smooth as butter now. Alright, you can see how smooth and quiet it sounds. No problems there. So we'll replace that one coil. So, you know, sometimes these aftermarket parts, you got to be careful about them. But it was interesting to see if this would work out. But just a tip also, when you're working on these, if you have any sockets, you lose any of those that are going to go down into the top of the engine, you're not going to get them out. So be very careful working on things in here, because you will lose some tools down in there. That's just the way these engines are. I got a couple of holes there. Anyway, so there you go, guys. I hope you like this video, and if you do, give it a thumbs up. And until my next video, I will see you guys later.